now of regulators who are the second panel. That isn't always the case, but we think it was very important. And let me begin by asking all of you, one of the most frustrating questions we get is, frustrating that we can't get it answered, to what extent are accounting standards, over and above everything else, an obstacle here? That's part of our problem. We will not legislate accounting standards, but we have talked to the Accounting Standards Board. Are accounting issues any part of the problem here? Let's start with Mr. Allison. Oh, I apologize. You didn't give your opening statements. I was... Well, we'll have your opening statements first. Mr. Allison, go ahead.
Would you like me to begin, Chairman Frank?
Yeah, with your opening statement.
Thank you very much, sir. Chairman Frank.
Ignore me from time to time. The hearing will go better. So just give your statement. Go ahead. Start.
Thank you. Chairman Frank, Ranking Member Bacchus, members of the House Financial Services Committee, Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Graves, and members of the House Small Business Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. The administration strongly believes that small businesses are critical to our economic recovery. We have listened to small business owners across the country, and we understand that they're facing real challenges in accessing credit. This week, the FDIC reported that lending by the banking industry fell by $587 billion last year, the largest annual decline since the 1940s. While the pace of contraction has slowed, the Fed's Senior Loan Officer Survey has shown tightening credit standards for small business borrowers for 13 straight quarters. We must improve credit conditions for small businesses. That is why the President proposed authorizing $30 billion for a new Small Business Lending Fund, or SBLF. The program would provide a strong incentive for small and mid-sized banks to accelerate small business lending. For example, if a bank used this new capital to increase its small business lending by 10%, its cost for this capital would fall to just 1% per annum. Additionally, banks could leverage Treasury's investment to increase by more than the $30 billion dedicated to the facility. It's important to note that the $30 billion is not a cost to taxpayers. It's an investment. We expect that almost all of that investment will be returned to Treasury over time. As you know, Treasury's previous investments in banks are already producing a profit to taxpayers. The SBLF would be created through legislation to make it separate and distinct from the TARP. While Treasury has the authority to create a small business lending fund under TARP, we're convinced that if we did so, very few banks would participate. Various restrictions under TARP have had unanticipated consequences for small and mid-sized banks. For example, a small community bank may not be permitted to make severance payments to a bank teller due to the golden parachute prohibition that applies to senior executives and the next 5 highest-paid employees. As evidence of banks' reluctance to participate in TARP programs, when we reopened the capital purchase program for small banks with less than $500 million of assets, 7,000 banks were eligible to participate. Only one new bank took funding during the next 6 months that the program was open. But simply removing TARP restrictions will not be enough to ensure participation. Many banks believe there is a stigma attached to accepting TARP capital. They fear that competitors will question the soundness of their bank if they take TARP capital, even though all banks receiving TARP funds have had a viability determination from their primary federal regulator. For these reasons, the administration strongly believes that an SBLF outside of TARP and under appropriate oversight would draw far greater participation by small financial institutions and thus have the greatest chance of increasing lending. Small businesses are asking for our help. The Small Business Lending Fund can substantially expand credit for small businesses across our nation. Treasury looks forward to working with you on this proposal to help small businesses create jobs and contribute to a full economic recovery. Thank you.